It's a pleasure to be back on your viewing screens, wherever you may be watching us from. 2023, and coincidentally, I've got my number 23 patch come in the mail just recently. So, what will
Brilliant.
2023 hold for us? Good evening to my very good friend and partner in crime, who was been on this Carlton Live journey for, well, we should probably talk about that, Johnny. I don't know how long it's been. But it's been since day dot. You've been on the Carlton Live journey, and it's a pleasure to see you again, my friend. And you're looking splendid.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Just I think we probably started about 2014.
Well, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but
Yeah, that's the thing.
I wouldn't be surprised on a little little channel, and we didn't have sort of Facebook or anything like that, and then obviously we migrated over to a couple of different live channels, and now we've got this little interactive show, and from what we started to do was just to have a chat about footy, to bring along a pretty large and comprehensive audience that hopefully like what we do and engage with us. It's been I'm pretty chuffed, to be honest, that we've made lots of friends along the way and got where we've got and been able to hopefully put a smile on a few other Carlton fans' dials. So it's been pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I support that 100%. But yeah, it's been a number of years. But 2023, what does that hold for us? I get it's got to be finals or bust. There's no stuffing around anymore. Finals or bust, and that will be if no finals, which I can't see happening. That'll be the end of the Voss era, and we'll be moving on. And there's Carlton beer. Look out, crack it open. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everyone. Oh, geez, that's been in the fridge a while. It's a boy. Before we get into, I suppose, talking a bit of footy, it's a pleasure to say good day to everyone out there tonight who's tuning in. Hopefully you've put maths on record and you've decided to tune in. We've been missing you all, and a lot of familiar faces. We'll say hello to Brendan Whitford. Thank you very much, Brendan, for tuning in. Grego, over in Perth, Kalgoorlie, we love to see you, mate. Thank you very much for joining us once again for another year, my good friend. Damien Lancaster, thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate that. Harry looks good this year. He certainly does. Luigi Foligno, g'day, Luigi. Thanks for tuning in. Paul Quixley, g'day, Paul. Thank you for tuning in. Andrew Lake, who has also been on our journey for a very, very long time and is a very good friend of ours and the brains behind Blue Horizons. Thank you, Andrew, for tuning in. We love your stuff and we rely on you to make us look a bit smarter than we actually really do. Who else have we got? Shane Carrick. G'day, Shane. Thank you for tuning in. Gavin O'Reilly in Adelaide. Welcome back. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's tuning in tonight. And yes, finals or bust, Johnny. Finals or bust.
Yeah. Look, before we do, can I have a bit of a rant?
Well, it wouldn't be a show without you having a rant, so I might as well get it out of the way.
Yeah, look, a bit of the off-season rant. I had a bit of a shave before, and I've been trying to find my my usual shaving foam up here. Couldn't find it this time around, so I actually got this lemon and lime shaving foam. And I go out at night, and everyone wants to lick my face like on some kind of splice. It's left me lemon, lime, and bitter.
And there's a way to lose an audience in 15 seconds. I've missed it so much, Johnny. I've missed it so much. Anyway, we're looking for some new talent to join the show. So if you're out there and wanting to join a Carlton platform, and this is what you've got to compete with, it shouldn't be too much.
Yeah, Johnny, just sacked me.
I've just sacked you.
Nonsense,
Johnny. We've been researching and doing all our homework and coordinate with each other for the last few weeks, ready for tonight's show.
4 minutes to go. We got together. Cheers, mate.
If you're just tuning in for the first time to Carlton Live, first of all, I'd like to apologise and stick with us. It might get a little bit better. Usually, as we get a little more drunk, or it gets a little bit better. But we're just about having a few beers and having a chat about footy and talking to you guys as we would if we were at the footy or at the pub. That's what we're all about. We're going to bring some smarter people to the platform to do the football smart stuff. And one of those will be joining us later on tonight on the show for the first time. So hang about for that. We can't wait to have a chat to him. But yeah, Johnny, 4 minutes to go for the year, and we're back into it.
There's nothing like good preparation, and that's nothing like good preparation. But what a fantastic time of year it is, though, because the weather's absolutely beautiful. You got footy to look forward to, even practice matches. I got right into it 11 o'clock in the morning with a cup of tea, yelling at the screen. I thought it was insane, but that's pretty much standard.
And that win did make up for the loss of last year, didn't it? That practice match, that match simulation win, that made up for it.
Nah, imagine if it, like we've got over it now a little bit. It's still it was a bit of a PTSD watching that match to be sure. But oh my goodness, it was just lovely to get away with the win. And people say now it's serious, John. Now, people say these practice matches mean nothing and all that. We got away with the win. Imagine the opposite scenario. We're 11 points up with a couple of minutes to go. Imagine if they kick 2 goals and haven't lost by a point. That then becomes in the voodoo sort of territory, doesn't it? That sort of becomes a little bit of a cross to bear. And the fact that we got the job done, last 5 minutes, last 2 minutes, we were able to hold up. So it does actually mean something. What are your thoughts, audience?
I'd love to hear what you have to say, and stick with us, everyone. We'll certainly get through to your question and comments very, very soon. First of all, I did have my psychologist on speed dial just in case it did bring back some issues of last year. I'm pleased to say I'm fully healed from the events of last year. I'm well and truly past it. I'm certainly not past the fact that we didn't make finals. That's going to stick and burn with me more than just losing to that last round. But we've discussed this before. We can put it down to losing to Adelaide or Melbourne. It wasn't the filth that was the cause of us not making our finals, and we lost it ourselves, an injury. So all that stuff, I'm fully ready to go for round 1 this year. Practice match, I'll have some things to say about that because I watched it and I saw some interesting things in there, some changes to what we're trying to do. But I'll get into that a bit later in the show. Your question was, Johnny, whether you think the practice match was a good way to start off the year and whether the win was important. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. With the underlying idea behind that, winning form is good form.
Fair enough. Let us know what you think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Paul quickly says, welcome back for 2023. This is our year. We're with you, mate. We are with you for sure. Hello to you, Carly Bumbus. Really appreciate you tuning in. I love to see you. Brennan Scott is on maths on catch up. That's cool. I've got that in the background playing. I'm just watching it here on the side, so I don't miss any of maths. We're probably more drama on this show tonight than maths.
So you do maths on catch up. I'll do my arithmetic a little bit later on too, mate.
First game excited, says Shane Carrick. Are you going to round 1? Let us know, ladies and gentlemen. Are you heading off to round 1? I hope you'll be there. We'll be having a few beers at the pub across the road. So let us know if you can make that as well.
Yeah, good stuff. I reckon that's a great initiative, Trev.
Deb O'Connor, go to you, Deb. Thank you very much for tuning in. Pauline Mary, g'day, Pauline. Thank you for tuning in. Any rumours confirm McGovern injured again? Easy one to answer. He's injured, but it's not anything too serious. He got a knee in the back in an intra club, so he'll be fine. And hopefully he'll take his place in the warm up game against Sydney this Friday night. So that's good news.
That'll be pretty telling, won't it, if he does?
It will be very telling.
As to the severity of it.
Well, Carlton aren't too forthcoming with their injury updates and detail, are they? I suppose we're talking about David Cunningham as well, who's come out, or it's been acknowledged that he's had a shoulder dislocation, but that's all we've heard. We haven't heard how serious it is, how long he's going to miss, whether he's going to have surgery, and that was 2 weeks ago. So that's typical Carlton, isn't it? Some things don't change.
Yeah, that's right. Which is a real disappointment, I think. But let's look at the positive side. I want to ask everyone a question as well. Sam Walsh is apparently ahead of schedule. If he was fit, do you play him round 1, or do you stick with the conservative approach of round 4 and 5?
Good question. That will be a good question for the audience. Well, interesting to see what they have to say about that. Very, very interesting. And I think, I'll let everyone else answer that question first. Chris Brider, thank you for tuning in. Good to meet you as well. Sorry I couldn't spend too much time with you, mate. I had a couple of work colleagues there that I had to entertain. But hopefully we can catch up again at a game very, very soon. But great to meet you as well. Who else have we got? Gary Whitechurch, every win is a bonus, showing something good is working and heading in the right way. So there's one for you, Johnny.
Thank you.
Andrew Lake, Pies certainly had plenty of looks in that last term. Elliot Dacos to go, missing gettable goals. Presence of Hewitt in that midfield brought much needed composure. He plays 20-plus games this year. We will contend. Big good call, Andrew. Hewitt is a very much welcome addition, and his back injury was looking dicey there, but he's just from what he showed on the weekend or last Friday, he's slotted in, and he's really, really important part of our cog. Who else have we got? Brendan Scott says Walsh holding back a few weeks. Peter Varhos says round 1. Don't play him round 1. Tony can come back injured, said Ricky. But backs can be tricky. I just don't know if we need to, Johnny. Is where I'm coming from. Hewitt. Interestingly, Chera, they started off in the midfield in the Pracky match, so potentially he's going to spend more time in the midfield, especially with the addition of Akers. Obviously, Doc's been training with the midfield group all pre-season, even though he played a lot of the footy on Friday against down back. Kennedy's looking up and about, ready to go. So I just don't think there's a need. Rather whether you would play him or not, even if he's 90%.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd still say round 4 or 5, simply because of what Ricky Spencer said. His backs are very, very tricky. You might feel like you're 100%, and it could just take one knock when you're not 100%, and then significant time out. I say let it heal.
Yep.
And exactly what you said, Trev, was at the moment we've got the coverage, don't we? That's a part of the ground where we're flushed with options. We've got a couple of very good players sitting in the twos as well that could potentially fill midfield roles. And Jesus, how much does Vossi dislike Dow?
Yeah, look, certainly very telling. Certainly very telling, wasn't it? Oliver Hollands, our first draft pick from last year, comes in and slots straight in, and Dowie's again floundering again into the in the twos. So he hung on by the skin of his teeth, I think, to stay on the list. No one wanted him. It's up to him, as we've said in the last few years, to see what he wants to bring. But yeah, clearly Vossi's not a huge fan. I didn't, but if anyone saw the twos, they didn't sort of give a best players. I didn't get a chance to hang around. So if you saw the twos or heard how he went in the twos, let us know. Debbie O'Connor says Diesel hates Dow. Certainly does not in the vein of the way Diesel played, but that's an interesting comment. Before we get some more footy, some good news. Some people might have seen this recently. A good friend of ours on the show, the Buzz, Peter Bazzusto, has announced that he has had successful treatment for his cancer and is now cancer-free, and that's really, really fantastic news for him and his family. So, yeah, best wishes again for Buzz, and I'm hoping that he can stay that way and get back to full health. So that's really good news. Thanks for pointing that out, Brendan.
What did he do? 18 rounds of chemo. That's like doing 18 rounds with Mike Tyson. And standing up.
Well, yeah, it's. I can't say that I know anything that a chemotherapy patient would go through, but from all accounts, it's not. It knocks you around a bit, and Buzz is getting on obviously in years. So to do that and to come out on the other side and beating it shows a tremendous amount of fight and credit to his medical team as well, no doubt.
Yeah, and cheers to his family. Have been, cheers to Buzz and your family, mate. Your family's been around you and great support for you as well.
Yep,
give you a lot to live for.
Yep, hopefully we can get him back on the show again at some stage. He was a good fella to have a chat to. I heard somewhere along the line someone ripped him off in terms of trying to do some fundraising for him. I don't know if that's furphy. I'm not sure, but that's what I did hear along the lines.
Yeah, apparently it was the roast. Buzz roast he was meant to do in Melbourne, which got delayed 3 or 4 times because of COVID.
Yeah.
And he came over. They roasted him, and he didn't see a penny out of it. I don't know how true that is, but Jesus, with the Carlton crew, you wouldn't want to see your face around again, would you? You would want to be off to Tahiti or something.
Yeah, that's a point. Brendan Scott makes a good point following on the Dow discussion. Big year for fringe players that have had their chances. Dow, Kemp, Plough, O'Brien, Marchbank, Martin, Cunningham. Yes, I suppose a few different players in different situations in that group you've nominated, Brendan. Certainly Dow, in terms of where he's at, I think that he'll remain that or sort of that player we call on if there's injuries. He's, even by not getting a game in the practice match says, where he is in the pecking order. Kemp's interesting, isn't he? Still young, showed a bit when he came in last year. Where does he play? What role are they trying to groom him for? I think, but he's got plenty of upside and time ahead of him. Mr. Plough?
Yeah, just for on those two, Dow, he's on our senior list, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Would a bit of the O'Brien syndrome be good for him? Just rookie him and just see what he does. It's not going to cost us anything. See if he can get his whatever he's got to work on, if he can get it right, and then bring him back if he does show it. Just a question. Kemp has got years ahead of him. He's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater there. His first 2 seasons were derailed, weren't they, because of injury? Don't worry about him. He's got to find his spot. We got to find a spot for him, whichever way you want to look at it. Back, forward, midfield. Doesn't matter. Maybe he's just the genuine utility, but he's got a lot of time on his side. Sorry, keep going.
Plowman, the whipping boy, played a pretty solid pracky, I thought. He's bulked up a little bit, looks a lot fitter. I thought he played really well at the practice match. I see him as someone the club clearly hold him in high regard. He's a role player. Just remember he might have been nice to hold a few players, in terms of, some of those medium to small forwards, which he's renowned for playing on, which people don't, sometimes focus on his clangers, but they don't look at the role he's doing on some of those players. Maybe if he was playing in that last round, a couple of players might not have got off the leash. So certainly a fringe player, but you expect to see him up and about and getting games because he's so held in so much regard by the footy club. O'Brien, I think.
I think has been passionate as I have been about Plowman. I'm ready to jump off. I think if Marchbank and or McGovern are fit, he sees twos. I don't think he's the kind of person that you would put in a premiership team, simply because of those brain fades that can cost you.
Yep. Okay. Very interesting take. Lockie O'Brien, a good point here. Russell Dobson also, noticed that he performed well in the Pracky match, but he also performed well in that last game against Collingwood last year. It took quite a few good hits. Was up and about. So I think, just by what I'm reading into, I think he's going to be given an opportunity again this year. So maybe that's with Chera playing in the guts. Maybe it's the Lockie O'Brien and Blake Acres wings where we'll see them play. So I think they're going to give him every chance to perform. But certainly, it's all or nothing for him this year. Similar to what Brendan said. I think he said Marchbank, another one. Yeah. Performed all preseason very well. Another injury. We don't know exactly where he's at. Didn't get an appearance in the practice match where we see him against Sydney. It's a shame. He's a good performer, but unreliable body-wise. So he's definitely, I suppose, a fringe player at the moment, particularly when there's a few ahead of him now. I think he's in our best 22, Johnny, if he's fully fit. But that's always been the key, isn't it,
mate? You've hit the nail right on the head there. Marchbank, McGovern, Martin, if fully fit and can play 22 rounds, are probably in the best 22 of any team. They can't. Can we continue to hope that they do play 22 rounds, 25 rounds, 26 rounds we're hoping? Or do we say, no, we've got to cut you loose, we've got to get in someone else? As a extension to that, do we need to start getting rid of some of these players to be able to offer TDK the contract that he deserves?
100%. We need to be getting more ruthless. And I see the draft selections that we've made as being really good forward-thinking draft selections for the players that you've just mentioned to cover that. We haven't relied on Marchbank for the last few years. We haven't relied on McGovern for the last few years. Martin has really done nothing. Cunningham was given a 3-year contract on the strength of a couple of good games and some flashy performances, but unfortunately is injured and continues to get injured. But yeah, there's some big money there with McGovern, particularly, and Martin, that I'd definitely keep in the back pocket for TDK.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think TDK's already left? I don't think so. I think that'll just play out. Same as H did, same as Charlie did. That'll just play out. I don't think he's going anywhere. He doesn't want to go to Geelong because he wants to play against his brother. He doesn't want to play with his brother. We can't forget that.
If I'm TDK, why am I committing or signing now? He's also one that and I know clubs will play a lot to get a player to their club, and he's a good player that's got a lot of potential and shows a lot. And I'm firmly on the TDK train, but we're in the box seat. And why would you sign if you were TDK? Why would you sign at this point in your career when potentially this could be, if he's fit enough, is his best year? And when it comes to contracts time, you just point to his season and push Carlton for whatever they can give him over and above the offers that he's going to get for moving. So it's a smart move. It's a smart move by him. It's a smart move by his management to wait. So don't think he's. I don't think he's going.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I think Curls Jr.'s he's smart enough to run the numbers and see who's got to go to fit him in place. I think that's already been planned, and it's just a matter of the two parties coming together and say, right, sign, done. I'm not worried about it at all. Same as H. I was never worried about H.
Plus, why would you want to leave a club that's clearly in line for a 5-year premiership dynasty?
Exactly. Everything's coming together at the right time. It's why would you?
Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Really appreciate it. It's great to be back. We're really excited about 2023, 2022. Yeah, our Annus Horribilis is done and dusted, and it's all about this year. And I'm really, really pumped, and really pumped to speak to all you guys again, and of course to you, Johnny. And we're really, really, really excited. And hopefully we'll get to a lot of your questions and comments coming through. This coming through thick and fast. Please feel free to comment amongst yourselves. Really appreciate that. But we'll try and cover a lot of stuff. Obviously, we've got this week and next week before round one, so I'll try and cover off as much as we can. Oliver Hollins performed really well in his first real hit out, and Lockie Cowan performed really well too. I was surprised to see Cowan come into that side straight up, but I think and Andrew's mentioned it here as well. I think we've nailed it with those two picks. Whether Hollins gets a run early or eased into it or up and down, we'll wait and see. But I think they've really got some good selections there.
So, best nickname I've heard in a long time, Moo.
Moo, okay. Moo Cowan. Yeah, instead of Wolf, he's going to get the Moo. That's going to be awesome.
I laughed for a stupid amount of time when I first saw that. Moo Cowan. But in all seriousness, I think, and I want to throw this open again, is I think that Cowan has the potential and the abilities that we hoped that Marchbank would bring.
That's exactly right. And if they picked something sort of similar in that mould, then that's fantastic. But don't discount Marchie. Cowan probably in and out and given an opportunity. But again, it's been a really, really good pick from what we've seen from just that game anyway.
It would be great if Marchie can do the next few seasons, sort of bring Cowan along with him.
Yeah.
Or
Moo. Carla Anderson, good evening to you. Thank you for tuning in. A great question. Who do you think showed most improvement in the practice game? Undoubtedly, the most improvement and the player that I'm really looking forward to seeing, and I touched on it late last year, and that's Jesse Motlop. Looks like he's been bench pressing buses over the off season. He's absolutely huge. And just looks like he's got a little bit more poise in his game. He's clearly bought in, and the whole team have bought into what seems to be a mantra with the club is team first. We did see a lot of individual play last year and spit a selfish play, but and also come from Jesse Motlop. So that's clearly one thing that I've seen, and I did see that in the practice match. Them looking for that better option, looking to give it off even in front of goal, which sometimes they fluff because they're trying to go against their natural instinct to kick goals. But by far and away, Jesse Motlop looks ready to explode.
Yeah, I've got to go along with that, but I didn't see it in the practice game, and I'll go into that after my selection because I saw it at Maroochydore. The player that impressed me the most was Zach Fisher. His delivery into forward 50 just gone up 2, 3, 4 levels. He's kicking on that left foot and either kicking it to a player's advantage to take the defender out of the play, or kicking it to a spot where the forward has to run into space, and again taking out the defender. It's absolutely genius play. What I saw in the practice matches, he played a lot further up the ground and didn't have that ability to be able to deliver those bullets in. But watch for that during the season too. It was something special to watch.
Yep, 100% agree. 100% agree. This is probably the most difficult question to ask and answer. Well, not ask because it's easy to ask, but it's difficult to answer. And I'm sure the club's wrestling with what they do. But I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks, and you, Johnny, about Brendan Scott's question. Thoughts on Ruck? Love JSOS, but if TDK plays forward a bit with Pitnet Ruck, don't think he's guaranteed a game.
It depends on who else is available and all that sort of thing. I think JSOS is probably first on the card, isn't he? Just because of what he brings. Look, I'm a big fan of the two ruckmen. I have been all along. I'm not a fan of JSOS going up. I think it's just bullshit. Because you want to be able to dominate that centre space for 100 minutes of a game, not just for when your number one ruckman is on. And I think TDK and Pitnet are completely different players when they're off the ball. TDK is an amazing forward and takes a great mark, kicks a goal. Pitnet has this wonderful ability to stand in the hole of the back line where the forwards run into and then intercept mark. So why not play them both, I say.
For me, JSOS is in our best 22 every day of the week. That high half forward role is his, and if they put Jack Martin there over above JSOS, I'll be very disappointed. He's just too smart with ball in hand. He's one of the only players that shouldn't say one of the only players. He's one of the few players that I see dropping his eyes, looking for, just waiting and have that poise to wait for that vacant spot or that lead into the forward line and hitting a target. So I'm like you. I don't like him rucking. The bigger question for me is not whether JSOS goes in or out, because we play two rucks. It's just whether it's the two ruck question in general. TDK, Harry, and Charlie, if they get it right, you can't beat all three of them up in the forward line. If one's down, they just can't be stopped. No team have got three key backs that can stop those three guys if they're up and about. So yeah, I'm coming around to the two rucks, and yes, you put it very succinctly. Pitnet, different player, control that midfield space, does go back. He can also go forward to kick a goal, but I think it gives us something else that others haven't got by playing those two.
Yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule by any means that TDK goes forward and Pitnet goes back, because the nature of the game. There's a comment here that TDK takes a lot of good marks from the back line. Absolutely, Pitnet has been known to shoot forward as well, like you say. But I just like the two of them rattling around if fit. It just you need that. You need the 100 minutes of good rucking and the ability to win it out of the centre. I'm not a fan of this. An example, a great case in point. What happens when we play Melbourne? Are we going to go with JSOS against Gawn or JSOS against Grundy? No, you're not. You've got to play two ruckmen.
Yep. It will be horses for courses. 1 week we won't be playing the two rucks because it'll be a different team we come up against. It'll be where it sits 100%. So it's just great to have that up their sleeve. Andrew makes a really good point in terms of the substitute sort of not being an injury sub, but as a tactical arrangement. I think Carlton will be really, really beneficial from that. And given where we are with our list and the options we have in the ruck space in particular, I think we'll be a real big beneficiary of that.
So tactical sub, is that what it is now?
Tactical sub. Well, it may have been a tactical sub because we know that players have been brought on and for little injuries anyway. So I think the AFL have just realised that let's just call it a sub and bring you on when it's a change needed.
Why not just put another fucking person on the bench? Jesus Christ.
Chris Dearmetric. G'day, Chris. Thank you for tuning in. Adrian Sell, thank you for tuning in. Mac Champion, we love your stuff. It's great to see you again this year. We can play 3 talls of our smalls become a lot more than what they've been. No more stars in forward 50. Good, very good points. Very good points, 100%. Thanks for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to be back on your screens for 2023. Like we said earlier, this is our 8th year, Johnny. 8th year, 9th year, what did we say? 7, 8, 9, I don't know what it was.
Yeah, somewhere there.
And we can't do it all our own, so we've opened our platform. Well, we never do it our own because it's you guys out there that do it for us anyway. But we've opened our platform up to some more contributors, some more good people, some more good Carlton people, and we hope we found one. Not that he's been lost or no one really knows about him, but we've got him onto the Carlton Live platform, and I'm pleased to introduce you to our team and our audience, Mr. Jake Benetton. Have I got that right, Jake?
Benetton. Yeah.
Thank you very much for tuning in, mate. Really pleasure to have you aboard Carlton Live.
No, thanks for having me on board, boys, and thanks to everyone that is tuning in. It's an exciting time to be a blue bagger after a long time, so I've picked the right moment to come on board, I reckon.
Clearly, you've got the Carlton Live budget, mate, because the lighting, needs a bit of work in the bedroom.
Yeah, I've had to sacrifice the old light. It's gone the way of the dodo, so we're looking at new ones. So if anyone wants to send one down, feel free.
all these sponsorship money and the money that rolls in, we'll see what we can do.
How are you, Jake?
John, meet Jake.
John, good to meet you, mate. Finally put a face to the name.
Yeah, you too, mate. Great article that you wrote for carltonlive.com. So great startup for the season.
Yeah,
mate, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a bit about yourself, what your background is. You were born into the navy blue. What can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, born into it. I'm only second generation Carlton though. My old man was the first, and we didn't really have an AFL background before him. So, I mean, I curse him a little bit for what he's put me through, but I don't blame him. He saw some good times. So I think he was onto the right idea, but yeah, I've paid for it. But yeah, I'm a sports journalist, have been for 5 or so years. And that's been covering AFL mainly as living the dream, but, looking to do something different, get a bit more into the Carlton side of things at the moment, which is good fun. So yeah, I've had the privilege of, watching a lot of trainings from not just Carlton, but every Melbourne-based AFL club over the years, and really getting an understanding and, talking to people in the industry and finding out, more and more about it. So yeah, hoping to use that knowledge and those expertise and bring it to the Carlton Live community.
Great stuff.
A sports journalist, that immediately brings the IQ of this platform up quite a bit of a notch.
Yeah,
by the way,
mate, everyone will agree.
Where's the cans, Jakey boy? What's going on? You got to
footy training tonight, so we've had to do the right thing, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Who do you play for, mate?
I'm a Caulfield Bears man in the Southern Footy League, so I'm coming off the back of a ruptured Achilles last year, so I played 4 games and then missed the year, so we're nearing a return, so looking forward to it.
Beautiful. We'll definitely keep out an eye for you at the Caulfield Bears. That's fantastic. And again, welcome aboard, and thanks for your article on the weekend as well. It was a very good read. And yeah, we're unashamedly biased here at Carlton Live, so you can throw your journalistic integrity head off and just spill it and say what you actually think, even if you don't mean it. Just let it all go out. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, and I'll be looking forward to it. I think I've had to toe the line in recent years and trying not to go too far one way or the other. I know people didn't really agree that I towed the line last year. I was pretty pessimistic when the injuries were happening, and I think people tended to think I was a super negative Carlton man. But if you ask any of my mates, I'm the opposite. I'm overly optimistic according to them, so I can't really please anyone in that space, it seems.
It's been pretty hard to be overly optimistic for the last 25 years.
Yeah, I don't know what I've got to believe in, to be fair.
Jake's only 25, so he hasn't seen the best stuff.
Yeah, I was 1 when we won our last premiership, so it's getting harder to claim that. So yeah, fingers crossed 17's not far away. I can actually remember one.
Well, it's a good segue into the question that I have, and I'll put it to both of you. And I'll start with Jake, given you're our new guest, and Johnny, you can go next. And I'll also put it out to the audience as well. An abysmal failure last year. We needed to make finals. what sees us go into that final spot this year and take that next step? What is it that we need? What is it have we got? If we think we've got it, what do we need to do to get into that final spot and get up to that next premiership?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think the obvious one's injury luck, but I want to kind of play away from that because I know everyone thinks that that's really important. And of course, it is a healthy list is key to winning anything, but injuries are going to happen. They're happening again, so there's no point in hoping they're not going to. But I think one thing Carlton definitely struggled with, despite, in my opinion, being a top 8 team. They're in the top 8 all year. Yeah, the ladder ended the way it did, and that is the most honest reflection of how you went throughout the year. You don't sit in the 8 for 23 weeks if you don't belong there. But Plan B is a massive one for Michael Voss and his team. And obviously, Plan A was a really good one. It was probably a brand Carlton fans aren't familiar with, and probably one that makes this team as likeable as any Carlton team has been in the last 20 years. It's physical, it's tough, it's hard, it will beat you up, it'll beat itself up, and it'll get the footy and it'll go. It's really cool things you want in a team, but there are a few things that, good teams take that away from you. And I think you only have to look at the Geelong game last year. And the Cats are as good as anyone at taking your game away from you. They did that. They took Carlton's game away. Probably the only game all year Carlton didn't look like they were a hope of winning that game. I think it only ended up being a 5-goal loss, but Geelong were in complete control from start to finish. There needs to now be a plan B. What can we do when midfields get on top of us? What can we do when sides start nullifying us at stoppage and at the source? We don't have a great intercept game. Lewis Young and Jacob Weeder are okay in that role, but predominantly they'll spoil the ball if it's there. I mean, Mitch McGovern, I know you guys spoke a bit about Caleb Marchbank, their role. I mean, we can't really trust them to come in and fulfill that, but we require an interceptor and we require, our key defenders to just take more marks because we've got the half-backs to run and launch, but we don't necessarily give them a lot of opportunity unless they go and win it themselves. So we got to get a game plan that works. If we're not winning the ball at the source, we need a way to score.
Really good points. Very much hard to argue with that. I'll touch on one of the things you said in a second. But Johnny, the floor is yours, mate. What is going to take us to that next level and that elusive 17th flag?
Well, first of all, I just want to go back to your comment, Trev, where you said that Jake's just raised the collective IQ on football. I reckon we're now hit 3 digits. That was very, very insightful, Jake. Thank you. But basically, in a nutshell, was my answer was going to be Plan B. Is what happens when we're just leaking goals. Collingwood kicked 5 goals in 10 minutes. It happens often. It's happened often for the last 20 years. And teams get on that roll. We just don't seem to know how to stop it. And that's what we need to do to be able to get top 4 to go all the way. And I blame a lot of it being on the on-field leadership. There has to be, all right, we've given away 2 goals. What do we have to do? 3 goals, what do we have to do? It's too late when it gets to 5 goals that we make changes. And I think that that's something that we really have to address is that on-field leadership. And are we playing too much to a plan rather than the chaos of what the game is?
Good point, Johnny. I think we've got the personnel on the list to contend. I think that's unquestioned right now, and staying healthy is right there. I think the personnel that we brought in those last 3 years just complement exactly what we have needed to take that next step. And again, with this year, we talk about Acres, and last year it was the last few years it's been guy from Fremantle. What's his name? It's gone. Chera, Adam Sard. Those kind of players we brought in. Martin was part of that plan, but I think those guys, to complement our players we've been developing, have been just the right picks. Andrew Lake, and also you touched on it, Jake. I want to see us to be unsociable. I think we played too nice in many instances. Particularly towards the back end of the year, and that Adelaide game was a standout for me, where I think we we just weren't. We just played like we were playing some country footy. So that we need that ruthless hard edge. Talk about bleeding these 5 goals here and stop that. It doesn't happen to a team that's ruthless, that stops that puts it that on field says we'll put a stop to that. Whether it's an individual or a collective group of the leaders doing that, or it's harder at the ball. I don't know, but we need to be. I think it's ruthless. Carlton haven't been ruthless. We haven't buried teams in the past when we had an opportunity, and I think we've got the personnel, the profile, the age profile to be ruthless now, and that's what I think will take us up where we need to be.
So on that, it's a very good point that you've both raised in this ruthlessness. Does that mean that personalities of the nice guy, such as the Dows and the O'Briens, aren't part of a premiership team? I pose that to the audience while I take a quick break.
Yeah, I'll jump on that one just because I don't think it's a personality thing. I think it's a confidence thing. We can question whether I know Dow and O'Brien, they seem to be the ones that stand out in that feature, but Lockie O'Brien has showed at times his willingness to have a go. I mean, it's been questionable at times as well, of course, but I don't think he's, as afraid of as people may be inclined. You watch Paddy Dow play a VFL game, there aren't many more physical VFL players than Paddy Dow. He just doesn't manage to carry that confidence up with him when he gets a recourse at the senior side. His willingness to crash a body and just burst through blokes in the toes is remarkable, but he just can't seem to translate that in the senior footy. But I think that just comes when you get bigger bodies around you. You start winning games. It's a lot easier to be unsociable when you're winning and you've got something behind you. If you've got a scoreboard behind you, you can always point at. A lot easier to be unsociable. When we talk about the unsociable Hawks, when we mention that word, they were winning premierships.
Yep.
But they're not that unsociable at the moment because they're not winning games. So anytime they are, it doesn't come off as unsociable, it just comes off as petty. The same can be said for the Blues, I think.
Yeah, look, you're 100% right. It does take time to build that. You can't build it through a team of 21-year-olds because they're just not going to bring that. You need that collective group and that age bracket of list and players on the ground to be able to bring the younger blokes in. And you're a footy player. I've played footy before. When you're playing well and when you're winning, it's a whole different mindset and a whole different ball game. Someone else mentioned, being mentally strong. Mentally strong does also, like you said, come from confidence as well. And there were games where, like last year, where we were flying, where we just couldn't do anything wrong, where we were just moving the ball brilliantly, and those players we might class on the fringe were just looking like absolute geniuses. So the time that we've had, and that's why I wanted us to play finals last year, because I think a finals game would have just complemented getting some experience for that in these young blokes. Maybe it made them hungry. I don't know. But yeah, extremely good point. Confidence does go hand in hand, with playing that harder edged, confident brand of footy.
Yeah, for sure. I think you talk about like not having a final to play, and obviously there's no being okay with not playing finals last year. But I think you got a good look at that round 23 game, and we spoke about it a few weeks ago, where that's as much of an elimination final as you're going to get. 90,000 at the G, Carlton win they're in, Pies win they're in the 4, both sides lose as a consequence. And I think Carlton fans and the footy community as a whole would have found out a lot about certain players that day. Players that stood up that day, especially in that last quarter. I know no one had a good last quarter, but there were players that did their bit and tried. And one that stood out is Lockie O'Brien. And you watch back his last quarter in that game, he was everywhere. He was the one that managed to get loose footy, and no one else seemed to do that. And I know he missed a shot at goal from about 50 out, but there was a little bit of confidence where he took a mark and just went, no, I'm going back. And that's confidence that we haven't seen from him and from many players for a long time. I think you'll see, if you just watch that game again, and I know Blues fans, it's incredibly hard to do. Trust me, I haven't watched the whole thing, but look that back and you'll probably see a few players that you wouldn't have expected that stood up. Like we know Cripps stood up that day, but we know that's what he does. But there are a few guys there that maybe had great years or not great weeks leading into that stood up, that I think you can look now and go, all right, we can count on them in that big moment. I think Adam Chera, another, was probably his best game as a Blue that day, and he seems to have gone to another level as well this pre-season off the back of that.
Fantastic and a great point. We did discuss this on our coffee a few weeks ago, and it probably did bring me out of the abyss in terms of what I looked at as being a failure and not making that finals. You hit it on the head 100% right. That look at that as an elimination final, and it was a final, and there was blokes that stood up. So we didn't play the final, but and Andrew Lake's also touching on it. The way we did play against a team that's premiership team in the last couple of years, plus a very solid finals contending team who have performed extremely well in the filth in that last round. The way we did play those games shows, and what we did show in many games during the year showed us we are on the right path, and that certain things go our way and some other changes in personnel, we're in pretty good stead to have a real proper crack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just a few comments that have then come through. I know Matt Champion, they're mentioning the playing on around the corner. I know that Charlie Curnow one's probably the one that stands out to everyone. But I think just on that, as someone that has watched them train a lot and watched every day, players practice that endlessly. And from a Carlton perspective, Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow are regularly the last to leave the track because they're practicing those shots end on end. I don't think we're in a position to question how they take their shots at goal. They do the work if that's what they want to do. The stats actually do say it's more accurate, but it's a comfort thing. And I think if the work that I've seen them put in and the work that the club tell us they put in, the work they talk about putting in, I don't think we can question that kind of side of thing too much. And we definitely can't blame us missing finals or losing a game on a technique thing. I think there's a lot more that goes into it than the technique of EQ goal.
It depends on how far out they are. It doesn't work once you get past, 40, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think Mackay said he finds he's about a 40-metre limit, and Curnow, I think, is about a 30, they've said.
Yeah. So the risk is that you hit the middle of the ball or the wrong side of the ball. That's the real risk. So I do understand the rhetoric behind kicking the drop punt, particularly in the clutch situations. But like you said, they've practiced it that many times. It should be, like a golf swing. They've practiced it that many times. It should just be straight through.
I think it's just that the miss looks worse. Like if you hit the middle of the ball, but it's snuck in for a point, I don't think there's many people complain. Because if you miss a drop punt, it still spins the same way. People tend to think, it's unlucky. But if you miss a snap and it bellies, everyone goes, that's horrible. They're both missed kicks. It's just one looks better than the other. But Mackay and Curnow both kick more goals or miss less with snaps than they do drop punts. But we have seen Mackay revert back to the drop punt from 45. I think he kicked 2 in that practice game against Collingwood where he just confidently went back, kicked the drop punt. So we know they can do it, but I think we just got to leave them to their own devices with that one.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking too that if I'm not mistaken with that final, and I've wiped it right out of the memory, but if I try and go back, I think that a lot of those snap kicks were to the near side, if I'm not mistaken. Now, is that ground conditions, and do you then put the cue in the rack and say, right, we've got to go drop punt here?
So that tends to be on a technical side. If you hook it, it tends to be a rush. So it means you've come out, it means your foot's come through too quickly. And I think that's where the difference between Mackay and Curnow is so important. Mackay takes his routine, he tosses the ball with the bottom of his hand 3 times, takes his breath, bends over, goes. Curnow's much more instinctual. Curnow will take the mark, have a side eye, go. And there's the difference. We don't see Mackay tend to miss that one because he takes his time. Curnow doesn't tend to belly the ball. He tends to hook it because he rushes, comes around and tries to kick it instinctually. And you can understand why. He's a beautiful kick of the footy. He probably should be taking his time, but that's why their misses tend to be different. Mackay will balloon a ball more. Curnow will hook near side more often.
Yeah, the other thing that I didn't get in that final is Curnow, even, if that's your style, to take the kick straight away, look at the game, take your 30 seconds.
Yeah.
If you miss, then that's 30 seconds gone.
100%.
Let's be honest, gents, the snap goal isn't the reason why we are going to win or lose more games this year. But it's an interesting debate, and yes, the optics of it when you're a supporter in the ground, looking to used to remembering these great full forwards kicking drop punts from all over the place, and then the snap kick just getting on you. The optics don't look fantastic, and you look at those things and point, well, whatever I can to blame a loss. Jake, did you go to the Pracky on Friday?
No, I wasn't fortunate enough to go on Friday, so I had to watch it on the incredible KO stream.
You've seen it though.
Yeah, I've watched it a couple of times now.
Did you see it, Johnny? See the game?
Yeah, I did, obviously, on KO. But is there anything more Australian than saying, did you go to the Pracky on Friday?
Yeah, at 11 a.m.
have a couple of brewskis. I'm interested in both of you and the audience. Did you sort of what was anything noticeable that might have been something different? We look like we might be bringing into the game, positional changes, tactical changes, game style changes. Was there anything that sort of stood out for you that you might see that this is something we're going to try and bring into our 2023 game?
Yeah, I think the key one, and it's not really news, but Blake Acres playing on a wing, it really gave Chera the opportunity to stay inside. And like Chera obviously won't play wing and should never play wing ever again. I think he proved that against the Saints, and it's a real big bugbear in mind with all these expert 23s at the minute. He seems to be named on the wing in all of them. But he's actually a very high-quality inside mid as well. He doesn't need to just play outside, despite the fact that he's a lovely ball user. And because he was allowed to be at the contest a little more, I thought he had an absolute day out. But that's what support on the outside allows us. I was a little surprised by the fact Acres didn't go into the centre bounce at all. There's been discussions about him possibly being a bit of an inside mid as well as a winger. I know when I stocked on the wing with a heap of guys, but with Hollands and O'Brien both playing, I thought at some point he might have made his way in there. He spent a lot of pre-season manning up against Cripps at stoppage, and they've been really physical against each other. So I thought we might see a little bit of that. We obviously didn't. I know some people were concerned by the fact we only had 4 or 5 centre bounce attendees for the midfield group, but it's a practice match. I think they just want to work on their craft and sorting that out. I think we can relax there. But I think it was a little bit the same. I think one thing was impressive is that last quarter they did hold on against a breeze where all the goals were getting kicked to the left of screen to that Legion stand, and they found a way. I know it's only a practice match, but I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better match than could we? 18 points up against Collingwood last quarter with the Pies kicking a few on the run in a row. Sorry, I think it was as good as we could have asked for. We just found a way to hold it. We kicked a goal, first goal that quarter through, I think it was Cripps, and we just found a way to get territory in the game. It's probably something we don't do a lot of when the momentum is going against us. Is we get territory, but we let it come out like so much easier. I think we held that in a little bit better on the Friday, but it's pretty hard to tell early in pre-season how much has changed.
Johnny, anything noticeable to you that stood out that we might be trying or a different sort of tweak to our game plan?
Yeah, I like Jake's comment about Acres. I reckon that was a beauty. I just wonder, and there's just me thinking on the fly here, is that sort of the ace up the sleeve that you leave for the real stuff and not show your hand yet? That might be one. Something that really impressed me, not only during the Pracky game, the Pracky on Friday, was I also saw this at the Sunshine Coast, is that the ability for H to go further up the ground, to be a link, Charlie to be the next link in the chain, and then TDK being such a smart player looks at how this is potentially going and it does a bit of a J curve. He runs down the wing and then just J's back out into the goal square and just sits there, and he's usually got a massive height and weight advantage on an opponent there, and he just takes some easy marks and to kick the goals when it does come out, and it allows the other two to push up and to fill those voids that we've had of being linked players through. That has really impressed me.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. If you've just tuned in, this is John and Trevor and our fantastic new addition to the show, Jake Benetwan.
Benoiten, but that is the French
Benoiten.
way of saying it. That's how we say it back in the homeland.
I'll get it right. I won't fuck it up after this. And I've had a few cans today too. Thank you very much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Our first show for the year. A couple of shout outs. We've got Anthony Walsh tuning in from Japan. Tony Eminy's joined us for the night. Thank you very much, Tony. We love to see you. Mark McKenzie's on board. Tony, Mark McKenzie says we should sack Russell. That's his way we can move up the ladder. I watched it pretty intently, the Pracky, and I thought the way we used the ground was a little bit more clever, should I say? I didn't notice use the corridor really much at all. I thought the way we moved it off half back and the way that we switched the ball and then fed that into those and you picked that up too, Johnny, and I think someone else picked it up. Harry leading up the ground a bit more, Silvani leading up the ground a bit more. So I think that linkage style of play that we may be trying to do rather than sort of kamikaze through the guts. And I know that's got its merits, particularly if you're 5 goals down, you don't need to win. You just sort of throw caution to the wind. But the way they seem to be using the ball off that halfback and using their strength, we know our strength is running off halfback, and we know our strength is we've got some good high leading forwards in Jesus, Mackay, Martin when he's playing. So I thought that was really, really clever. I wasn't sold on the Akers pickup, but I'm all in now. He's a big body and he uses the ball really, really well, and he can be versatile. So he's also. I noticed also that there seemed to be a lot more willingness to get back into defence. What else did I notice? The mantra has been, and everyone's probably heard it, is team first, and that's not really any kind of thing special for most teams. But I think a lot of Carlton has been a bit selfish over the last few years, and I think I saw a lot less selfishness from the game on Friday. So the willingness to sort of hold on a little bit more, look for that better player in position, and support the team from that team perspective. I mentioned Motlop and Ford. Our forward, though, the forwards were looking for that better option when usually they'd snap for goal. It's just a practice match. So they were looking for that better option. And sometimes they're going to fluff it because they're just mishandling and overhandling the ball. So that's got to be one thing that they're mindful of. I was concerned with, but Collingwood are great at it, the transition footy that they do from their defence to attack. We got caught holding with our pants down a few times with that, but again, they're masters of it, and we need to sort of tweak that. And again, that delivery into the forward line on many, many occasions was, and it might have been the conditions, it might have just been the fact we're trying to take advantage of our height, but we still got that let's kick and hope type situation that Harry and someone. So I think we just need to tweak that a little bit. But overall, I thought some really good positives out of that game.
It was interesting listening to Ashley Hansen after the game, and he said that bombing in, they're still going to do it when they've got a one-on-one situation, it's kind of not a bad way to go. It's when you're bombing it in high to the top of the square when the whole pack is there. Defenders absolutely love that. That's bread and butter. Mark it, clear it, go straight down the other end. So there's horses for courses here, isn't it? When you've got that pack sitting at the top of the square, that's when you look up for the lead up.
Yeah, I think there's a craft to it as well. Like kicking long is absolutely plays because you gain territory. It's easier to defend from 20 out than it is 40 out. And you can understand why maybe is a not terrific transitional defensive side, Carlton, might be a little bit hesitant to hit up that 40-metre, that target at 40, because you turn it over at that centre half forward region, and that's just a goal to the opposition. You can just chalk that up. You don't stop those. So you can understand why the Blues might be a little bit hesitant as a side that doesn't transition terrifically well, and it's not a quick midfield. I know we've got some quick defenders, but you think about our last line being Wiedering and Young, neither of them are quick, and then our midfield at any point could be Hewitt, Kennedy, Cripps, and none of those three are getting back into the footy. The footy it'll beat anyone, but it'll beat those three. So you can understand why Ash Hansen says they still want to go long and deep, but it's just about how we kick it. I think too often, whether we didn't adjust to the wind in that first quarter, I don't know what it was, but the ball was it was always to the back, which is where the defender was at the back shoulder. It's just to make sure we kick it to that advantage, or just hang it 5 meters short of the pack, give them a running jump, because Mackay's not the greatest body on body mark. I can't remember too many times he's out-bodied someone to taking a contested mark, and Kerno's better at it, but again, they're both better off running and jumping at the footy as pretty much any forwardies. But I think you can always go back to when Levi Caslott was clunking everything. We still never kicked it to his advantage. We never made his day easier than it had to be. And it feels like it's just an area of improvement that hasn't necessarily gotten a lot better over time.
Well, we haven't had the personnel a lot now, but you see players like the good ball users. You'll see Chera just take that pause. He'll kick to that space. You'll see Silvani do it. You'll see Hewitt do it. You'll see that those clever players that will just hold on to that ball for that microsecond to look for that space. And that's a lot of the time all it takes. And when we've got these good, hard leading forwards that can either jump or lead at it, then I think there's often times we miss the opportunity. And I know clubs are good at defend and plugging holes, but clever ball users like that often find their way through. We also only had that sort of really one specialty forward pocket playing on the weekend in Motlop. I know Fisher's sort of scouting around that role as well, but Durden was injured, so we sort of didn't have one behind, one in front, which is interesting. But not a big issue to worry about, I don't think. We'll have some questions, and we'll go to some questions in a second from our amazing audience.
I've got one for Jake.
Sorry, say that again.
I've got one for Jake.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Something that I've been thinking about too for quite some time, as you mentioned, the 3 balls that we've got and their inability to, quickly transition back. Do you think it's either or Hewitt or Kennedy?
No.
Sam Walsh fit?
No, not at all. Because I think Walsh, you can shift out to a wing, and we saw even that half forward role he played last year, he was still up at 32. He plays that 5th on baller, essentially just plays as an on baller, but just starts at half forward. I think there's ways you can make it work. Kennedy can go forward if we need him. Like let's say they only want to play one ruck, that means Jay Sauce plays as the second ruck, then Kennedy can play a hybrid third tall for that 5-7 minute period. So there are ways you can work that. But what Carlton does well with its structure is it protects that midfield as much as it could. It's something we didn't do a lot under David Teague. And something we did a bit under Brendan Bolton was we played with a goalkeeper. And back then with Bolts, it was Simpson and Doherty. And you look at a lot of wet weather games, and commentary would harp on it whenever we played in the wet. But we actually did that every week. So we always play with our goalkeeper, and we tend to do it now. It tends to be Wiedering now. He tends to play as our last man. Sometimes it can be Lewis Young. But we always tend to have that last man in defence as that filtered. So if there is a fast break on, very rarely decides actually kick a goal over the back on us. They tend to work their way through us, but very rarely do we just get beaten over the back and someone runs into the open goal square. So I think you can absolutely play all the mids that essentially played round 1 last year. I think they can all fit in again with Walsh. And especially when that is that's our plan A, is we've got to win at the source. We need to stock that position and go win the footy. And then, if we win the footy as often as they're planning on and we use it well, then we shouldn't need to worry about it coming back as much, I think. And that's where plan B might come into it with Voss and Hansen. I know they'll be working on something, but yeah, win the footy first, concentrate on what you do. And then ideally, if we do what we do well, we shouldn't have to worry too much about transition defence.
Very cool.
Awesome stuff. Few people are sort of alluding to these type of questions, and I'll put them out there, gentlemen, to you, and it'll probably be a few questions in the same sort of statement. We've got obviously another game next week, Friday against the Swans, which we'll have a chance to see some other things that we might be doing this year. The lineup will probably be different to what it was against the Filth. And I know it's a little bit early, but let's try and call it and put our crystal, looking at the crystal ball. Do you see maybe Hollands, Cowan sneaking in for that round one game. Do you think there's going to be any surprises come round one? Will they do what they did last year and play Martin off the back of half a bloody practice match? Is another one is Ed Curnow in the mix for round one? So, yeah, just I suppose there's a few questions in the mix there, gents, but let us know what you think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I really like what Cowan's done. He's been a real shining light pre-season. He's the youngest player out of the draft, and you wouldn't be able to pick it looking at him. But I don't think he plays round one. It's no reason he can't. I just don't know if they'll expose him to that. I don't think they need to either. Doherty looks like he's going to stay at half back. So if there's himself, Sard, I think we're pretty set in that position. I think Lockie Plowman's probably the one that would come in for Williams. And then, to be fair, Plowman tends to play pretty well against Richmond. He tends to get that Dustin Martin matchup. And I can only remember, I think, the one occasion back in 2021 where Dusty got a hold of us. So I think Plowman gets that first kind of crack at it, and that comes with, having spent a bit of time playing that important kind of third defender role that he's done. Hollands is probably the one I think does play. I think they will want Akers to play some inside midfield minutes. I think to do that, they have to play Hollands if Walsh isn't fit, and it looks incredibly unlikely that he will be. So, yeah, I think Hollands gets in, and he's another one that he's been incredibly impressive, and everything you hear from other track watchers at the Blues is they've been incredibly impressed by him and Jackson Binn's running ability, which we knew they had. That's why they were drafted. Nick Austin made that quite clear on heading into the off-season. They wanted runners, but they've been incredible. So I think Ollie will get a crack. Ed Curnow, probably not. I think I'm very happy they re-signed him. I think he's just good for the place, and he's excellent if George Hewitt or Matt Kennedy do go down. But I think you could see in the Collingwood game, he's probably not where he was a couple of years ago, and his fitness is still absolutely elite. But once the legs do start to go, and once the game starts to go past you a little bit, which I think it may have done with Ed, it's a bit hard to kind of catch it up. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of role they find for Curnow, whether that's as that tagging forward. I know Brendan Bolton tried out at some point, or he spent a bit of time through defence at little clips on Friday, which I don't think we'll see much more of. But yeah, I don't think there'll be a ton of surprise. I think Jack Martin, I reckon he'll play. I think they're setting him for round one again. I think they'll just hold him playing round one. He might be the sub. I think he came on as a few times. The sub was pretty impressive, but I think Vossi likes him, so I think he'll play. But I can't see anything. And I don't think it'll be two different asides we saw round one last year.
Johnny, do we pull some rabbits out of the hat in selection, or do we go with what we know?
Well, I think that's the beauty of where we're at as a list is some predictability about it. Hollands may get a Guernsey. I like what he's done. I like how he gets his own space. I think that's really an amazing attribute. I just think he's a little small at the moment, and he gets ragdolled a bit, and Richmond will tear him a new one. So I'm not sure if he'll get a few more weeks in the twos. I don't think Ed will be there, unfortunately. I want to see if is it Cincotta? I want to see if Cincotta gets.
Yep.
Because I think that's extremely likely.
Yeah, I think he's more likely than Cowan if they do opt to bring someone into that halfback. Yes. I think he's ahead of Cowan. Otherwise, I don't. If they thought Cowan was next up, I don't think they actually would have recruited Cincotta, because we don't need that many backups. But I think they say Cincotta is that next one up, which is fair enough. So he had a terrific year in the VFL last year, so I have no problem with that.
I was extremely impressed with his composure, going up to the next level. Now, how that translates, to going up again is to be seen. But, that he didn't look out of place whatsoever, I thought, which happens a lot when you get VFL players in. Yeah.
He's probably benefited from doing quite a lot of the pre-season as well with the AFL list. John, you mentioned there that Ollie Hollands perhaps got ragdolled a little bit. Now, round one against Richmond, he'll probably come up against a Camden McIntosh. Not an overly physical outside team, Richmond. They're inside when they're going is quite physical, but outside, the likes of Camden McIntosh, they're not very physical out on that wing. They're incredible runners, though. I think it's probably the right game for him. Other than the fact that there's probably going to be 95,000 people and it might overroar him, and we just don't know. I don't think they will be too physical. Collingwood, on the other hand, quite a physical side, top to bottom. They love the contact. Richmond's wingers, though, they just want to run. And I think we just need someone to match that. And if we have O'Brien, Akers, and Hollands, it gives us a chance to rotate them and keep them fresh, because Camden McIntosh tends to play his best game against Carlton every year.
It's going to be, in terms of...
That's why we're here, to debate all this.
Look, in terms of, it's going to be fascinating, isn't it? We've got Newman to consider, who played pretty solid. You know, does Durden going to be fit? Marchbank and Martin, are they going to be fit for round one? You know, the two rucks obviously is in that discussion point. So, you know, we already talked about playing Walsh, which is highly unlikely. I don't think. So it's such a, you know, we said last year was fascinating, but this selection for round one is going to be absolutely, you know, I think we can put down Akers. I think there's one we can put down. You know, Honey, they brought in for this practice match. Is he, you know, he's potentially maybe be swapped out for Martin this week if Martin needs a run before round one. I'm a big Newman fan. I can't see Newman not playing.
Yeah,
yeah.
Who do you have and I'll ask both of you, who do you guys have as your starting small forwards? Take Fisher out of it because he's more a half forward than a forward pocket. If we're going to play two out of Motlop, Honey, Owies, and Durden, assuming they're all fit, who are the two you take in?
Motlop and Durden. Durden for the mongrel.
Yeah, I can side with that. I have Motlop, Durden, Owies would be right on. I know they're both dealing with niggles of their own, but they'd be vying for that second one. Durden's start to the year, he gets in, but the fact that Owies, I mean, he wasn't superb. I think he kicked 15 goals, so just under a goal a game, but he managed to do that throughout the whole season, whereas Durden kind of faded away, and that comes with obviously pre-seasons, but Durden's also had quite an interrupted pre-season. That maybe just has always a little bit ahead of me, and he has that bit of mongrel that I think we need. And then I've got Honey fourth. I just think there's still a few things to iron out. There's a few things with Josh Honey. I don't know if he just needs to play more senior footy to get a few of the VFL habits out of his game. Like, he loves a U-turn when facing away from goal, and he just U-turns and kicks it long. He did it a few times on Friday. I don't know whether that's just because at the VFL you can get away with that, and he carries that in, or if he needs more AFL football to learn not to do that, or if they have to teach him that before bringing him in.
Yeah, fair enough. Isn't it a wonderful problem to have, though? What I love about Owies, and since day one, is his ability to find space where there is none. You know, and he was a relief kick a lot for the last 2 years when he played. When there was no other option, that he was a relief kick to say, all right, he's in space, let's keep it inside forward 50. So he's very unlucky for me. Honey is one of those players that I think you might be absolutely right, just might benefit from AFL, you know, to get the VFL out of him, because I think we've all seen it as what he can potentially do. I want to take him off the potentially list.
Yeah. I think he had, it was like 4 goal assists in that game against St Kilda in 2021 when Kerno made his return. So 4 goal assists, kicked his first goal. I mean, that is a good sign of someone that's got the nous. But yeah, there was just a few little habits that was got to iron out, which, again, continuity as well. I can't remember I wouldn't imagine he's played more than, say, 10 or 12 games in a row at any level since he's come to the club. He's another one that seems to just pick up a knock here and there. So whether it's continuity at VFL level or AFL level, I'm not quite sure.
Well, how good did Matty Kennedy pull up, you know, when he started getting that continuity and that confidence in his game?
Yeah.
Different spaces and position players, but Matty Kennedy in his start to the year last year, he was looking like Patrick Cripps at one point. You know, heading forward, taking marks, and he was obviously a forward in his junior days, and he's also another an option up forward if we need that as well. But I liken that sort of continuity of game, and that's what we always wanted in our footy club, was that strong list, that player competing for that spot, and we've got that, I think, in spades. And credit to the recruiting guys over the last few years who've done some really, really good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think Kenny's a great example of what maybe belief in you can do. Don't know if he necessarily had that from previous regime. Vossi clearly likes him, and it's done wonders for him. I think just the knowing that someone backs him. But I think all the smalls have that. I think they all know that if they play well, they're in. It's just about continuity of games between. And it's about forming a partnership too. I think you see how important it is for the Keys. Mackay and Kerno have only played a very small amount of games together. I think the same goes for the small forwards. And the one thing Durden and Motlop have is already a very, very good relationship off field. And it might actually hold them in good stead on field. And maybe the reason why they are the 1 and 2 going forward this year.
Yeah, true.
Gents, it's getting a bit late and nearly time for my Betty Buyers. There's another good Australian anachronism, Johnny, you can take. Jake's probably just heading out for the night, given you're a young whippersnapper, mate, and got the world at your feet, and probably going down to Chapel Street night clubbing or something like that on a Tuesday night.
No, that was back in the uni days. Those are long behind me. The Tuesday night out.
Sure. Johnny, you're not heading out tonight.
God, no, dinner in bed, mate.
Couple of things before we finish off, and again, thanks everyone for tuning in for our first show. It's been really super to get back on board and talk some good Carlton footy. Jake, do you got any insight into the injury to David Cunningham? We haven't heard anything other than it was a dislocated shoulder. Is it surgery for poor Cunners, or is he? Or we just no one knows as yet?
I think that's something we'll find out in the next couple of days. So I think the club had said it as much that they were going to know by midweek. They've been quite tight-lipped on that scenario. All we know is, it happened in a wrestle at the end of training. But I think we'll find out in the next couple of days. That's what I'm hearing anyway, is the next couple of days will be when we find out the severity and whether, it's surgery and, 6 months, or whether it's tape and hopefully not too many weeks. But, all I've heard is it'll be sometime this week, ideally.
Yep. Would he have been in your mix for round one if that injury didn't occur?
A fully fit David Cunningham is in my 18, let alone 23. And I know everyone's big on him now, but I was big on David Cunningham. What you did Sam Walsh, David, 2019, that pre-season, I was chips in on David Cunningham, labelled him my boy. And now everyone's on now that he's become a myth, but Carl I was number one ticket holder at the Cunners fan club. So he's 100%. I'll battle this all year once he's back. But he's 100% in the side. He's that hybrid mid forward. I think we think Fisher is. I think he's that.
Well, I'm off. I jumped on it quickly last year after one game, and I was slapped myself in the face for being so silly and being brought into the Cunners fantasy land of he can play 18 games of footy and he's going to be a superstar. But if he's got surgery, it's his last game. I don't see him playing another game of footy for Carlton Footy Club, unfortunately, and it's a shame. But I think have bought into the flashiness of David Cunningham and what we want David Cunningham to be and the type of player. Of course, that doesn't mean I'm not fully supportive of the guy and hope he's not having an injury and can come and play back footy for us. But I think there's a few ahead of him in terms of what consistency and what we've seen others do over him. But we'll see.
I think one thing that bodes well for him is that it's not one injury. It's not one thing they can't get right. It's not a knee like Kerno's. It's just a range of things. And I think you put that down to just luck. It's not like his ankles are no good or he can't run quick because he'll do a string. He just can't move.
Yeah.
So it probably bodes well for him that, it's not one issue and that, if he just gets a crack at it, then it's not one thing he has to worry about.
Yep. Excellent. All right, gents, I'm out of beer, so that's another good reason to wind up the show. I got these little beauties on Facebook Marketplace, thanks to a nice, generous Carlton supporter who was selling them and decided to donate them to me because they were a fan of the show. So thank you very much. You know who you are out there. I'll have to try and find some more so I can just keep drinking them on Tuesday nights.
I think I've got one of them sitting in the beer cart. We'll just stay there.
When do the Bears when do the Bears have their first hit out?
We got our first pracky match on the 25th of March, which I'll be allowed to play 2 10-minute blocks of. I'm incredibly excited for. And then round 1 is 2 or 3 weeks after that.
Oh,
So mid-April.
so you've been on the Andrew Russell Andrew Russell
I might
training
have
regime.
to give him a call. I've done plenty of rehab and plenty of walking and calf raises. If anyone needs to know how to do a calf raise, ask me. I know every version of them. But looking forward to getting stuck back in one more time.
Fantastic, Johnny. Anything else to finish up with tonight?
No, mate. It's great to be back. It's a great time of year. Like I said, I've got Carlton Friday night. I've got the Noosa Tigers on Saturday. It's going to be a wonderful weekend. Just picked up the keys to our new house. It's all wonderful here, mate.
And you're inviting everyone, all Carlton Life supporters, up for the housewarming in a couple of months. Is that right?
Yeah, all 2 of you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to get back. It's certainly helping my mental rehab, and my therapist said that this would be a good therapy to get back into the group discussion and dynamic, and it certainly helped. Some familiar names and some new names on the chat list. Thank you very much. Like I said, we're hoping to grow the platform and provide more content. We try to hope to keep the same vibe that we've got going and had for many years, and that's just a bit of fun, talking footy, being biased about what we love, trying to engage as much as we can and hear from you guys as well and have your opinion heard as well. That's what we want to try and do. Jake, a very welcome addition tonight. Thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you more. You probably need your own show, mate. That's one thing I've probably worked out from tonight.
If the people are happy with that, you're not going to get too many arguments from me.
Yeah, you and Johnny, I think, probably work well together. But we might find someone even more smarter than me and Johnny to work with you as well if we can. But really appreciate that.
Thanks to the audience as well, because Carlton Live in its purest form is it's audience driven. It's what we live for. It's a chat to you all. So thank you all again. It was wonderful support. It's been wonderful support for a long time.
Here. Thank you very much. We will see you next week, next Tuesday night at 7:30. That will be pretty much 24 hours away from round 1.
Can't wait.
Jake's got your ticket. Jake, you got your ticket note out?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have away seating with my membership, so I'm locked and loaded.
Nice work. I've got my ticket, but if there's any, Carlton fans that might be in a corporate box Thursday night at the MCG that needs a bit of extra company, a bit of entertainment, MC, whatever it is, I won't say no. Let me know.
And just on that, if that those same people are happy to fly me down from the sunny coast and be the second part of that MCing, all good.
We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do from our awesome corporate sponsors that are coming thick and fast through. Thank you very much, Johnny. It's been a pleasure to see you again. Fantastic news about your new place. Enjoy the move. Sorry I can't help you move, but I'd be up there if I could. Thanks to everyone tonight. Jake, really appreciate you joining us tonight. It's been absolutely fantastic. You've raised the intellectual level of the show quite considerably, and we look forward to having you on again. We pride ourselves of being, so you'll probably have your own platform by tomorrow and just take on the world. That's what we do at Carlton Live. We bring these young whippersnappers up and they take on the world.
Fingers crossed that we can rock it off from here.
That's it. There's only one way to go anyway, mate. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much, and we will see you next week at 7:30. Thank you. Good night. Go Blues.